I know. It's been a long time since we hit the airwaves. We've been doing lots of written blogs. No excuse, just very busy. A lot of things going on. But I figured let me chime in here after the third consecutive overtime game. And some thoughts about the stretch run. As you know, I am the anti-fluff Net fan. I did not get all giddy, goo-goo, gaga. I certainly thought the victory over Dallas was a championship character type win. You know, playing without a couple of key cogs, being down most of the game, coming back and winning that game. I thought it was an impressive win. However, I was very much expecting that the next two games would be difficult victories. Now, this is our Nets. Our Nets are schizophrenic. They make you feel really good one day, and the next, you scratch your head. You know, the team goes up. Now, I did not watch either game live, New Orleans or Charlotte. But as I looked at the phone and saw a 16-point halftime lead in New Orleans, I really started to get giddy. I was like, this, and coming off an overtime emotional win in Dallas, and you're traveling New Orleans to play a good New Orleans. New Orleans is pretty good. I know their record stinks, but they're pretty good, especially at home. You know, the big guy is outstanding, and obviously we saw Evans. I'm saying 16-point lead at the half. I'm saying they win this game. I mean, they have officially stamped themselves as Eastern Conference contenders. I mean, of course, 1 and 2 right there. We know Miami and Indiana is 1 and 2. It's never going to change. But you're talking about with the victory in New Orleans. To me, it was like 4 or 5 rungs up the ladder to get right behind those two squads. Because we know we're in Miami's head a little bit. I don't think Indiana is afraid of us, and they shouldn't be, sweeping us all 4 games this year. But I thought a win there would really send the notice to everybody that, holy shit, man, without Garnett, without Karolinko, Thornton leaves the game early. Yet we come back and we beat this team. But, of course, we don't beat them. We don't. The overtime was a disgrace. You know, we're taking 43s. 40. We follow that up by taking 37 the next night. I mean, this is not a recipe for championship basketball in the playoffs. Now, I understand with injuries and you don't have really a low post presence. I understand the perimeter game. And last night in Charlotte, the perimeter game saved them. They made 17 threes. So, of course, the positive spin is without those threes, they're not in the game. But taking 40 and 30, taking 77 threes in 2 games is not going to win you games. It's not, it's not going to happen. But they lose the New Orleans game. So instead, now, if they came out, lost that game, if they were sluggish, if it was like a Chicago game, remember they played the back-to-back, they lost to Chicago big. If it was just like any other of those games where, they just trailed and they cut it to 2 or 3. Remember Detroit. Remember the first time they played Detroit in Detroit? It was a back-to-back, and they trailed the whole way. They cut it to 3 late and couldn't. You kind of go, okay, man, yeah. I mean, all right, we're shorthanded. We're on the road. We're in a back-to-back, and we played overtime last night. But when you've got a 22-point lead and you've got aspirations of being recognized as an elite team in the East, as a real contender, you have to win the fucking game. You must protect a 22-point lead. I don't care who you're playing. I don't care where the game is. If you're up by 22 in the third, you must win the game by 1. Do what you did in Phoenix. You led big in Phoenix. You won the game by a point or 2 points, whatever it was. Win the game. You don't win the game, now it becomes a negative. Once again, you bite your lip and you go, motherfucker. And listen, for those that thought that Charlotte was going to be, I mean, I'm amazed. honestly, some people amaze me. That all right, we'll get the Charlotte. You're going to get this. What are you going to get the Charlotte win? Okay, yeah, sure. Al Jefferson's going to just say, no problem. Kemba Walker's going to say, no problem. Just come in here and beat us. We have nothing to play. Oh, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So Charlotte turns into a dogfight. And listen, I don't care who you are. There was one time in that game where I felt we could win, and that was when Pierce hit the 3 in overtime to put us ahead 1. Other than that, never felt like we could win that game. I mean, you just knew what was going to happen. We just have 4. There were 4 tremendous looks in that overtime. 4 tremendous. D-Nil. How can I call him D? Well, listen. By the way, I'm calling him D-Nil. You don't like it, then don't freaking tune in. Yeah, he had 29. Yeah, I know he was sick. Loves to tell everybody how sick he is. I know he had the flu, whatever he had. I know he had 29. I know he had 7. I know he had 5. I know he had a great game. He also scored 18 in the first quarter. Scored 9 the other 3. And he's also the guy that threw away the basketball against Toronto. That's a 2-game swing in the standings. 2. So until and unless we get out of the first round, unless we land the 5 or 4 seed and get out of the first round, you can count on, I don't care if D-Nil scores 50 a night for the next remaining games. He's D-Nil. Because in the biggest game of the season, Bob, what are you holding on? In the biggest game of the season, up 1, he threw the ball away on an inbound to Toronto. Now do some math, folks. Do some math. You win that game. You're an extra win up, 1 loss down. And Toronto is 1 win down, 1 loss up. You're a half game in back of Toronto with the tiebreaker. So, you want to forgive him? You want to say, oh, blah, blah. I'm not. I'll hold him accountable for that particular decision. And, of course, listen, the other 25 awful games he had, I know he's playing well now. I know he is. But there he was with a chance in overtime. With a 12-footer, he misses, and Kemba Walker makes a fade. That's the difference. The one team in overtime made their shots. The other team didn't. Pierce misses a layup. Johnson misses an open 3. We're used to Johnson missing open 3s. I mean, he actually had a decent game from 3. He was 4 for 7, but we've become accustomed to him missing looks. Usually late, he gets it done. He didn't get it done. One team made shots in overtime, the other one didn't. And, of course, the lucky break with the block to CDR. Anthony Morrow, CDR, I mean, it's washed up net revenge time of the year. I don't think there's any former Nets on Cleveland, so I think we might be safe. But this is now loss number 15, folks, to sub-500 teams. Now, I know Charlotte's a better than what you would normally think of a sub-500 team. But guess what? They're a sub-500 team. So they count in this recording. They count in this tabulation. We have 15 losses to sub-500 teams. And I know, beginning of the year is different team. I get all that. But the NBA doesn't say, okay, you know what? You're a different team. Let's replay some of those games. Let's replay the Philly game. We'll replay the Boston Celtic game because you were a different team. By the way, they weren't a different team when they played Boston. They were on a nice run when they played Boston and laid the egg. How about the 3 losses to Detroit? How about that? How about the loss to Sacramento? I mean, 15 losses to sub-500 teams. And that's not even including the giveaway Toronto game. So imagine if D. Will inbounds the ball in Toronto. You're a half game and back at Toronto. And now imagine that you win Philly. You beat Detroit once. And you win that Boston game. I'll give you the other 12 losses. The other 12 losses to sub-500s, you can keep them. Give me those 3. Give me Philly, Boston. Give me 1 Detroit game. And I am all of a sudden 2.5 games up on Toronto. With the tiebreaker, I've got the 4 seed locked and potentially the 3. I told everybody about a week and a half ago I made my predictions on how the season's, and some people said you got to redo it. I think Mark. No, I didn't have to redo it because, yeah, I was wrong on some games. Obviously, they beat Miami, but they lost to. I thought they'd beat Washington. They lost to Washington, and they blew a 12-point lead. I didn't have them losing these 2 games on the road. You know, Toronto lost a couple games they shouldn't have. Who would have thought they'd lose to Cleveland? Didn't think they'd lose in Atlanta. They're not getting the Atlantic Division, guys. And again, it's all forgotten. If you don't get the Atlantic and you get the 5, and if you 4-4, and if you get out of the first round, then none of this is going to matter. But just like last year, when I was a bitch all year, and I was pissed off about getting the 4 seed last year. Do you remember that? I was pissed off at the 4 seed because it meant 2 things. It meant Chicago in round 1, and we know how that worked. And then my even further anger was, even if we got through Chicago, which we did not, Miami, who had lost 115 straight games to, was sitting there. When, if you recall, we had Indiana's number last season. 3-0 against Indiana, including 2 wins in Indiana. So my thing was, if we had won our games last year, a similar situation, I think we lost 15 home games last year. And so many to bad teams. If we had just took care of our business last year, we would have gotten 3. We avoid Chicago, and we get Indiana in round 2. Interesting. But no. I know about past. What are you living in the past? I'm living in the past because the past gives you clues. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it gives you clues to what may happen. And boy, do I see the same shit I'm out. Now, is this team a lot tougher than last year? 100%. Is this team more resilient than last year? 100%. But you're looking at a team that has shown the ability to lay an egg at any time. This team, I mean, legitimately could have like a 16-game winning streak going on here. You look at these losses. You look at the loss to Boston. Unacceptable, inexcusable. And they lost. They were wire to wire. They were down with Boston. Wire to wire to the Boston Celtics. Then they're up 12 in the 4th quarter to Washington. Lose that game. Now take those. Just say you won those 2. Now you're up to 11-game winning streak. And you add a couple of more wins. Then you beat Dallas. So you win another 4. Now you're up to a 15-game winning streak. And here you are in New Orleans with a 22. I would say with 22-point third quarter lead, you got to win it. Now all of a sudden you got the largest winning streak of the season in the NBA. And then if you lose to Charlotte, then you can go, hey man, hey, shit man, hey, it happens. It happens. But every one of these losses all losses suck. I get it. And none of them have different meaning in the loss column. There's no like, ooh, ouch, this one hurt. But look at them. Dissect them, and they give you means to worry. We're getting our asses handed to us in rebounding. Nothing you can do about it. Garnett needs to come back. I'm worried about Karolinko. Not the injury. I'm worried about his head. Karolinko is a complete. He was the MVP of this team for most of the season. The last 2 weeks since he started missing free throws ridiculously, since he's become Chris Dudley at the line, he is a different player. He's a 180. He was a guy where, oh my God, we can't have him out of the lineup. To now he's in the lineup. And he's tentative. He's making bad decisions. He's not aggressive. He's afraid to go to the line. Listen, I understand. I understand that we're doing this with a severe attrition. You know, every day we're playing without guys. Hopefully Garnett's ready to get back in action. I had back spasms. I had such bad spasms, breathing hurt. So I get them, and I know they last a while. Mine were 2 weeks. I know these guys are professional athletes. They're getting treatment all the time, and they want to be more extra careful. I get it, but we need him back. We need Karolinko to make a couple of free throws. I think the guy's missed 6 straight free throws. This guy shot 70-something% from 70-something% for his career from the line. We're having a lot of lapses that we've had in the past of last year, and they're not the lapses where we fold. Last year we folded. We got hit in the mouth, we went to the canvas, and we folded. That's not the case. But man, we're getting into situations now where we're starting to develop a trend where if you look at Washington, 12-point fourth quarter lead. New Orleans, 22-point third quarter lead. Bobcats, different story. We didn't lead, I get it. But we're losing the close game. We're not executing late. Now, we did in Dallas. I mean, I'm not going to say we never do. We executed in Dallas. But there are a lot of bad signs of games that we probably should have grabbed and we're not grabbing. And boy, I can see it biting us in the ass come playoff time. I could see getting this 5 and having to go to Chicago. I mean, do you want to go to Chicago in that game 1? And Joakim Noah bitch slaps every net he sees. He's probably pissed off that Brooke Shields isn't in the lineup because he slaps him as if he's 6'2" instead of 7-footer that he is. Joakim Noah is a man. Carlos Boozer usually eats us up. Gibson, Butler usually is in Joe Johnson's head. You want to? Could we beat Chicago? Yes. The extra additional toughness we've added, the emergence of Marcus Thornton as a scorer coming off the bench. Mirza has been a factor in the rotation. Could we beat Chicago? Yep. But do you want to go to Game 7 in Chicago? And if you do, if you finish in the 5 seed and have to play Chicago by just a couple games, just remember Philadelphia. Remember Boston. And do not ever forget Toronto. With D. Will with the basketball. Inbound the ball. Nets win. Just remember that. 2-game swing in the standings. So, get out of the first round, and then you won't hear me talk. Then none of this matters. Then I am a bigger idiot than you already know I am, and I'm wasting time bitching and moaning about the 15 losses to sub-500 teams. Don't get out of the first round. It'll be 2 consecutive years that my little pet peeve, not a good word, my little hunch, my bad feeling, my bad vibe was once again accurate. I was a pissed off soldier making the playoffs last year in the 4 seed. Was not happy at all with it. And of course, when the result came, when we lost Game 7 in my own building, I got on and said, I told you it was all about the bullshit games you gave away. I'll be the same way. If we lose the first round in this upcoming playoff, I will be the same way. The season will be a complete 100% failure if you do not get out of the first round. In my opinion, if we get to the second round, I'm still not going to be happy with a loss in the second round. I mean, but I could live with losing to Miami. I could live with that. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be disappointed because I really believe right now that we're built to battle with Miami. I think we can play with them. Be interesting to see how the next game comes against them in a couple weeks to see how we do down in Miami. If Miami really wants to send a message, you would think that they'd come out and beat the shit out of us, but I'm not sure if they're capable. I mean, Miami could be at that stage where they're all just tired, banged up, and you know what? Their legs are just, I could be wrong. Maybe they get in the playoffs, they turn the switch on, and I'm an idiot. Could happen. But I believe we match up well against them, and I believe if we got out of the first round and met them, I think it would be some good basketball, and I would not be shocked if we got past them. It would be the greatest moment in Nets history all the way. Well, listen, getting to the two finals was the greatest moments. There's no question. Jason Kidd leading us to the finals twice was the two greatest moments in Net history. Prior to that, some of you aren't even close to being born yet, I was a Net fan when they beat the 76ers, when they won all 3 road games behind Stan Albeck, when Albert King's tip-in of an Otis Birdsong miss was the dagger that gave them. I still have that game on Betamax videotape. That game was on Channel 9. It was tape delayed. It wasn't even live. It was Game 5 of the opening round series. Philadelphia was the defending champs. We went into Philadelphia, won the first 2 games, best of 5, came home, lost the next 2. Dr. J said, you can mail this in. This is a guaranteed victory. And we came out and won Game 5 in Philadelphia. That was the 3rd biggest moment in Net history. A victory over Miami in the second round, I think, would rank as probably the 4th biggest in Net history. Am I getting ahead of myself? Yes, I am. I'm rambling. But remember, you have 15 losses to sub-500 teams currently in your pocket. I don't think you're catching Toronto. I told you a couple weeks ago you're not catching Toronto. Unless Toronto has colossal breakdowns and just really does not win some games that they are absolutely supposed to, we're going to finish behind Toronto. Hopefully, Chicago finishes ahead of Toronto in the 3 seed, and we play Toronto, and we have to start on the road in Toronto. Do I think that will be easy? Hell no. Would I be shocked if Toronto beat us? Hell no. Toronto's good. Toronto poses problems for us. Lowry is a stud. Ross can play the perimeter. DeMar DeRozan eats us alive, and the big guy in the middle, Valanciunas, is a badass. Amir Johnson's tough. They are good, Toronto. But give me them. Get through the first round, and we'll see what happens from there. All right? And by the way, you're playing the Knicks twice in the next couple weeks. Win both of them. Just saying. Leave me alone.